Have you rolling, Bob? You know what that's from?
Oh yeah, I know from the
Nashville skyline.
I'll be alone with you, just you and me.
But
Hello in there! Hey, what's so important? What you got here that's worth living for?
I did not realize we were live.
Sometimes I do that. All right. Well,
Welcome back.
yeah.
Way back. Here we are. It's Tuesday again. Wasn't that when we
It's
used
Tuesday.
to?
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's Wednesday. But because of President's Day, it's actually the second day of the working week.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Blathe. We've had a extended hiatus, a time to reflect and come up with new.
It wasn't any fun either.
as few hiati are. Hiati. Would that be the point? Hiatus? Depends if it's fifth declension. It could be hiatus. Anyway, sorry. Welcome back. I'm here back in my brother's luxurious studio with him, Judah, my dad, as I call him, David McNeil. And I thought it'd be fun just to have a little live chat to kick off this second season of To Blathe.
Yeah. Right. You were talking about wanting to get back on the horn. And doing interviews again.
In the saddle.
In the saddle. With the horn. Hopefully not making an uncertain sound. What is that verse when the trumpet makes an uncertain?
That's right. A trumpet making an uncertain sound.
But not right.
Let's hope we're not doing that right now.
Okay, good.
You're back in the saddle.
Back in the saddle. We're gonna talk. You had the idea.
Well, I thought the focus you have the dream and the vision of having a school, right?
Well, we're all in education. That's
Yeah,
a family business, education.
But focusing it on education and Gumption Academy.
The Gumption Academy.
Overarching mother company, whatever.
That's just the Gumption Academy is the Gumption Academy.
And so looking at the Venn diagram of advice, preaching, and teaching. Where do they come together? Where are they different?
Yeah.
Because what I've found, just thinking recently, especially in the West, especially in America, is that people do not just that they don't take advice, but they react against advice.
Okay, let's talk about what these three things are.
Okay.
Teaching is the easiest one, and that is to deliver information to people which they generally recognize their need for in life, right? You're going to need to add and subtract. You're going to need to write. You're going to need to read. You're going to need to, when the Civil War was or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So teaching that's the most recognizable.
Okay.
What's the next one?
Preaching.
Okay. Preaching. Preaching is, what is preaching?
Preaching is, what is preaching?
Oh, you're giving information, but it's not something that anybody particularly asked for, or knows what it's good for.
But people do ask for it. I mean, the difference between advice, because it's easy to think of, okay, the factual, the dates and stuff. But a lot of teaching is gray area as whether it's factual.
Well, maybe we should say unsolicited advice.
Right. So the difference between teaching is generally you're in an environment where you've already announced, I want your advice. You're in a classroom. It's basically a formalized, you have already said, I want your advice. So really, I mean, advice could be seen as just unsolicited teaching.
That's right.
And well,
but the difference between advice and preaching is that advice is focused on someone, and preaching is generalized. That is, everyone needs, in the sound of my voice, needs its declaration. You declare it. Those that hear can hear. He that has ears, let him hear. Whereas advice is given to someone particularly who.
But what do
needs it?
people mean when they say, "Well, don't get preachy with me," or a book is preachy?
Well, I think when people say "don't get preachy," what they're saying is stop giving me advice. And I think the difference between
it's
preaching
advice.
and advice is preaching is someone is trying is speaking with the hopes that they're speaking with the word of God, and advice is someone is giving their own expertise.
I think it's more general than that.
Well,
Because
there's an element.
because
There's
you
an element of that.
Yeah.
You're preaching, you're declaring, you have the right to tell all of these people who don't know why you're telling them this at the beginning. Because you have a right, have a certain right.
It has a universal moral element, right? Because it doesn't have to be. Plenty of atheists talk, and I go, "Oh, gee, they're preaching at me,"
Well, but I think what you're just, but that doesn't. What is that the quintessential? Is that essentially preaching though?
What? It's
when you feel bad about it.
No, that's just one angle.
I think it's just advice, right? Someone is just giving
advice.
When someone says, "Oh, that's preaching at me," really they're saying they're giving me advice.
No, it has a more universal element. I think it has more universal element.
Like
advice is you should buy a Chevy instead of a Ford, and I'd never feel like that's preaching. Preaching has a universal moral component.
That's good.
That has a moral component that it all has the categorical imperative, right? Has some sort of like in all cases.
But that's why you can tell everyone,
right?
That's why you can tell everyone, because everyone is subject to the same moral imperatives. Whereas not everyone needs to buy a Mazda,
right?
But this person, but it's still giving advice. You're still giving advice. But it's general, it's generalized, it's on a universal moral basis, and it has some authority that gives it that right to be proclaimed generally.
Yeah.
But advice is given locally and specifically, right? But it's like preaching. Well, why would someone getting advice don't preach at me? Because they're thinking that you don't care about me. You don't really, you
have an agenda.
You have an agenda that you would tell anybody this. You shouldn't be smoking. See?
Right. That's preaching.
Right. It's preaching because you can say that to everybody.
Right.
Almost everybody.
But I think the problem comes, and what we're seeing is the blurring where people are being treated or acting like they're teaching.
I don't know. Let's see. That's why I think it's important to talk about talk with I statements. I feel that when somebody speaks without I statements, that it feels preachy, no matter what. If they say you, even if they're talking in the general it feels preachy, right? Because like you said, the moral imperative. It's this thing where I'm an expert and this is what everybody else needs to know. And I think there's
preaching.
Preaching or advice, I guess. Well, I guess it would be indirect advice.
So, like, for instance, when our dear friend, and I'm not trying to, get in the political weeds here, but say when Dr. Fauci comes on TV and starts talking about the latest mask stuff, is that teaching because he's an expert and he's giving us information? Is it preaching in that this is some more universal moral thing, or is it advice?
Well, and I think that
good question.
I think that the problem
I don't think he knows.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think any of us know, and I think that after postmodernism, wherever we are now, we have an allergy to expertise.
I
would say the opposite.
I
have a fascination.
Well, the experts don't have an allergy to it.
Oh, they love it.
Well, I think
what do you mean by that?
If anybody comes up to you and says, "Listen to me, I know better than you. This is what you need to do."
I rebel, but the average, look at people triple masking immediately.
Yeah.
What happened this whole last 20 years
months.
But I don't think, maybe that's the difference between media and I didn't want to bring in politics because it's a completely different thing. When somebody comes to you personally, it's a completely different. Well, see, here I'm talking to you. When somebody comes to me personally, it's completely different than if I hear it on TV. If I hear on TV and someone's talking generally,
Yeah.
it's kind of I can take it or leave it, and I tend to take it if the person is an expert.
So that's
But
like
if an expert-
teaching. That's
yeah,
like teaching.
it's like teaching.
It's information.
But if a teacher
He's
comes
putting
to me and
information.
says you and points a finger at me, I typically no. Opposite. I tend to go opposite. Or intellectually, even I think.
Nobody
what,
really.
what is
Nobody.
the flip side?
Nobody likes to be told, "You do this,"
Or you should.
Who or no? You should do this. Who likes to be told that?
But I think that's
Why do so many people actually buy that during this pandemic? You need to do this. Who bought that?
Well,
everybody, a lot of people.
Well, I didn't.
Oh,
No.
I think it's different though because of fear. When somebody's afraid, it's not unsolicited advice. People are going to the TV to say, "What should I do?" It's solicited advice. So
well, I think
we're
what
not soliciting.
to me, the
advice.
insidious dynamic.
I like that though. The fear, isn't that?
Yeah.
But isn't that what preachers? The old
Oh yeah, fire and
the
brimstone.
archetype of you set it up like you're all going to hell. I mean, this is archetypal.
Right, sure.
Right. I mean, the cartoon, right? You're all going to hell, and here's the answer.
Right.
You don't have to. So you set up the fear, then you.
And then
So basically, Fauci is a preacher. You're all going to die of this if you don't do this. Here, you need to do that. So it's preaching, and people. Okay. All
yeah.
right.
I
guess I see it more like
I
that.
feel like that paradigm fits, but what I was thinking is insidious is that, like you were saying, people are much more apt to receive advice if it's mediated.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as they're telling hundreds of thousands of people what to do, they'll follow it. So what happens is it tends to feed centralization. They'd rather a dictator that they thousands of miles away than have their neighbor, their grandma. I have friends who are naturally rebellious to their immediate authority structures.
Yeah.
They don't like their dad or mom telling them what to do. They don't like their grandma telling them what to do. And yet they immediately gobble up anything that comes from some bureaucrat thousands of miles away.
Well, and I don't think they
What
saw
is that?
them. I don't think they see them as saying you need to do this.
Okay.
I don't think they see
people
them as
resist.
Y'all, we need
People
to do this.
resist. Yeah. So it's good if they are able to identify a problem and they themselves act therapeutically toward themselves. They feel empowered. That's good. So the guy on the radio says, "Have you got high blood pressure? You know, if you take this stuff, you eat. All you have to do is eat this kind of stuff. You don't have to take pills. They eat this. They go, you know what? I should eat this kind of stuff, and I don't have to do all this other. I am making decisions for myself.
Right.
He doesn't know me. He's just putting information out there. I can take this for myself. Now, what is that? It's taking advice, but it's taking advice that is generally kind of. It's not preaching.
Well, there's no personal skin in the game. I mean, there's no
Your dignity
letting
isn't-
them down. You're nothing at stake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you stop, they don't even know who you are. They don't care.
Nobody wants to take direction from somebody else. I mean, naturally, in the flesh, as we say.
But I
as someone
think,
say.
I feel like, I mean, my sense is that there is a deeper, my hope is that there is a deeper desire to take advice. But with that, there has to be that really the mechanisms have broken down since there's not enough give and take. There's not enough skin in the game. You know, if somebody's really there and committed to your life, your wife, whatever, the reason is people hate taking advice from their grandma or aunt or parent is because of a breakdown in society, that something is missing.
Yeah, well, one thing we didn't in the Venn diagram we're missing is there's advice, preaching, teaching, and leadership.
What is leadership, right?
Because leadership, I think everybody in time, especially if they are fearful about something, they will go along. They will see somebody's leader, even if that leader is making bad decisions, as long as that person is providing a way forward,
direction,
But he has to share in the problem, right?
Yeah. Well,
I
don't know.
mean, you taking advice doesn't necessarily. In fact, taking advice, when I think taking advice means you have the problem. The person that is giving you the advice doesn't necessarily have the problem.
Right.
I may have
There's
had the
there's
problem.
a distance.
Yeah,
He may have had the problem, and
But
let's
no
hope that he
longer.
had. But anyway,
Whereas leadership is we're all in this
We're all
together,
in this
and
together,
I'm
that's right.
going to
we all
usher us out of it.
and we're all going to participate in this. We're all going to share the same threat,
Yeah.
same sacrifice, the same danger.
That's the sense, yeah.
You know, let's go. That's something.
We're all in
else.
this. I mean, well, that was the slogan during the pandemic: is we're all in this together. You know?
Yeah, that was the lie.
Yeah.
Because all the people saying that, none of them lost their jobs.
Right.
Anyway, we don't want to get into that.
But preaching, I think, the best kind of preaching is leadership, right?
Mhm.
We're all in this situation. I remember going to the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting with my friend. The guy says, "Okay," he started the meeting by saying, "We all know why we're here.
Mm.
We all know
We
why
all
we're
know
here."
why we're here.
So we're all moving forward. There was a lot of preaching, maybe.
Well,
But I guess when we say preaching, we talk about someone who doesn't have the problem again, or has had the problem, and is telling you that have the problem.
But I like the going kind of bigger and more general. The whole we're all in this together is kind of what separated the novelty of Christianity. Is that before even Judaism or any of the other, the gods, there was the gods, and they didn't have our problem, and they had some kind of either one god or the gods or whatever. And the Christianity was the incarnation of Christ, was God taking on our and shifting from the advice and preaching to the leadership, leading humanity from within.
That's good.
Leading humanity in towards divinity, but not from the divine side, but from the human side. And I think it's a model. And honestly, I think of the American government system and most modern democratic institutions as being based on the incarnation, this model of leadership from within, as opposed to divine right of kings or emperors who were divine or whatever. But the servant leader model
used to be.
And I'm hopeful that actually political evolution and will evolve towards that. I believe that the example and mission of Christ is slowly working its way into human institutions. Not to go, it's a big jump.
That's a different topic. But well, we could talk about that. Yeah, some other time.
Yeah.
But I like the leadership thing. I mean, I think good teachers are leaders. They say, I'm learning this. I like reading things. This is really good. I read this recently. I remember when I read it, and this is really good. You find this, and remembering that a teacher is just someone who just learned it fairly recently, not 100 years ago,
That's my buddy Eric Hanks. He says the best teachers are one step ahead or two steps ahead of the students.
In fact, that's my favorite thing about being a teacher. Whenever I get to be a teacher, is I get to learn all this stuff, and I'm just like one step or two steps ahead of the kids,
Well, and that's why the I statement thing was so revolutionary for me. Is understanding that as soon as we start talking, even as I'm talking now, I will slip into this you. And that easily slips into sounding like preaching or advice, and
it separates.
And I think we do long for direction, and I think we receive it better, especially in the West, when we hear someone say, "I feel like this," or "I think," or "I experience this." And I think it may apply to you.
Or and that's really the flip side of asking questions. Don't you think it would be better?
Well, that's probably better.
Don't you think it would be better if And I remember.
Don't you think you'd be better? It's the most thinly veiled question.
Well, I know. Well, I remember.
Technically a question.
I remember Dick Strayer asking me, and I was going off to see if I could join this organization. He says, "Now, David, we've had some problems being part of. I just gotten out of the Army, early, And he says, we've had some problems being a part of an institution, or haven't we?
Haven't
I mean,
we?
that was it, but it was really sweet. It was like I'm making it sound a little bit more preachy, but it was,
Sure.
but he was asking me, but he was asking me, it was good. But I just want to quote
Yeah.
I want to quote this from the Bible. This is Psalms 141. It's so pure. I wish this would be there is a time, isn't there a time where we wish someone would tell us which way to go? I'm not saying that we should. I know people, I can think of a friend right now who at one time said, I just wish somebody would tell me what to do. And they went off and they got into not a cult, but kind of a sect of Christianity that it screwed them up so much they left for a while, So, but this is Psalm 141:5. Let the righteous smite me, it shall be a kindness. Let him reprove me, it shall be an excellent oil, which shall not break my head. I said, we all would love to have that attitude. I mean, I don't have that attitude, but I would love to have it. Let the righteous, not just anybody, but let the righteous smite me. Get back over there. Do that.
Well, there's that line from that rock and roll song. If I swallow some evil, put your finger down my throat. And we do all hope for that. We need that. If we're lost, if we're amiss, we want somebody.
If I swallow anything evil, put your finger down my throat. Excellent.
It's such a beautiful thought that we need other people to do things that are very uncomfortable to redirect our path.
That we won't die.
But to me, what that means is we need people we love and we trust, and we cede our sovereignty to people we trust, not some distant bureaucrat expert, but our wife, our grandmother, our father, our pastor, our good friend, our dear friend who loves us, who can have that. I always think this image, it comes to my mind a lot in these political questions, is Ulysses tied to the mast, screaming, untie me, and they don't untie him because he had earlier trusted them and said, tie me up. Don't listen to a thing I say. And to me, that's what I want somehow to be a politic based on that ground up, that grassroots intercommitment, skin in the game,
But I think the difficulty with that is the people that need the most advice. Theoretically, in my experience, the people that need most advice are the people that aren't soliciting it, aren't submitting, don't have the wherewithal to submit to a community or
right. Well, and the problem is it's much easier if you organically come into those things. It's hard to create those around yourself, and if you wander far enough off the map, they will be created for you.
What is that? What will be
prison or something like that? If you don't take enough advice, then eventually, somebody, whether it's institutional prison or just somebody who's tired of your crap or whatever, smack you on the head.
Mr. Wagner used to call, remember that big stick he used to have to pry things? He called it the negotiator.
Well, what is it what is it really sad? What's sad, I think, is that we hate with a very deep, difficult to understand animus anyone telling us what to do, or not anyone telling us what to do, but nailing us for something that we shouldn't be doing, right? And you should be doing this. No one wants to be told, Dave, you're doing this. It's bad. Do this.
What I'm contending though is that
just a hard.
There are circumstances under which we do take that, and the reason we hate it.
Can you think
what are
right?
They?
Well, I think the reason we hate it is because when it comes from somebody who hasn't paid their dues, who hasn't demonstrated that they're willing to hurt for me, and I think again that's the Christian message. People come out of the blue. They haven't carried my burden. They haven't come over and helped and hurt me. They haven't let me cry on their shoulder or whatever. They don't have any skin in the game. And then, oh, they want to dispense this advice to me. Whereas when somebody has bled for your sake, when they have hurt with you, you take that advice.
Well, and when they are ready and they know that they're likely to hurt again when you fail, and they're willing to take that, to suffer that because they love you.
Because they love you.
Yeah.
Well, that to me is the kernel that is the key to this.
I think that is the tragic state of where we're at in the West, is that few people have any of that in their life. No, I mean, how many people do I have that I can feel like that would apply to right now?
Sure.
We don't build communities of people that sacrifice for each other.
And we don't have mechanisms for. Maybe we do, and we don't take advantage of them. But we don't have mechanisms for sacrificing for each other because of the independence, right? So when people had to, needed help or whatever, but since we have this huge safety net, and again, it goes back to who is sacrificing to help us? Well, the government, or that's the safety net, and so that's where people look for that level of advice. But if they had a community of people around them,
right, we're outsourcing our suffering.
When did you get and take the most advice? I can remember exactly when I did.
When you did? That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, I have to think about it. When
I was in college.
In college.
Yeah. And when I fell in with a bunch of guys, 4 years with a bunch of guys. It changed slightly here and there, but they were a core bunch of guys, and they started off very early, and then they would give me nicknames or something like that, and I'd say, "Am I that way?" or something like. And they called me the Barbarian of Omega. That's what I said, "Why have they called me that?" and I mean, I must have had some really slovenly habits. Of course, I don't have them now. But of course, I can remember the last. And the same, one of the guys was, I just told the story last night. I come back from hitchhiking around Northern California and kind of, after I got out of the Army. And I see my friend Don Welch, who was, he's gone now, and very smart guy, very sweet guy. And I was talking to him. I said, Don, I'm going to go back to my parents now and go back home. I think I've found my center. And I think everything is going to be right if I just don't talk too much. He says, "Good luck, man." And I said, that was a great way to give me some advice.
Yeah.
See, I mean, because he loved me.
And you knew he loved you, and you knew he knew you.
But he comes in, but that was one of the guys in college. In college, you got a lot of attention. You gave a lot of attention to other people because you were with each other. You were with each other. You had those guys. You had those guys all the time. You were with them all the time.
You're changing a lot.
Yeah.
And you're in kind of a risky
flux.
A risky environment.
And you get to know yourself by seeing the way they saw you.
They saw you.
Now later, you get your persona. You make your persona. You get it. That's when you're in danger. I think you get your persona. That's when
because it threatens your identity.
I'm in danger.
For well, you get a wife, and your wife takes care of a lot of that. Now your buddies are, but you, Paula, you have friends, and you actually go around seeking a lot of that, giving a lot of that, and seeking, right? Yeah. Really continuing that thing that went on after college.
Yeah, right? I've tried to, because I don't think it has to be. I think the modern experience is just a little condensed version of that in college. But I think a lot of that energy and commitment and those deep relationships are things that should continue throughout. They just happen not to in the modern system, because then you go on and you're moving around and whatever. So I've tried to keep those alive, because I think they should carry throughout your life.
Well, and I think that segues into the idea of teaching and Gumption Academy. Any kind of academy, any kind of what is it called? Catechism, you know, is the idea that I believe this is important, and you can join me, or you don't have to join me. But this is I believe that this is truth. I believe that this is good, and I want to tell you, it's your choice. You know, it is your choice to join me or not.
And yeah, what I want to explore with the Gumption Academy, one of the things I want to explore is what's the process of incentivizing, institutionalizing? You know, the old idea of a university in the Middle Ages, it was just a common place, but you would find a professor, you would hear about somebody, and you'd go to them, and you'd maybe make a deal with them. And you would solicit them, and you'd give them some money and a couple of students, and then they'd teach you, And so there was a shared, like they're paying you. I don't know. It seemed to formalize. How could you formalize that skin in the game? That, hey, we're in this together. I want you to learn because I really want to invest in you.
Yeah, I think that's that is tricky. I want to invest in you.
And see, that's what
You're talking about the relationship, how the professor feels about the student. But it doesn't have to be. Which is the more personal relationship? It seems like the more personal relationship is the student feels about the professor. You have the admiration, the kind of fascination with who this person is. Whereas the professor just looks at the student as he might think of, this is a smart guy. He's pretty good. He can get this. But he doesn't necessarily have to have that kind of admiration. He doesn't have to have this paternal. He really doesn't.
But why is he motivated, though? What motivates him to teach?
He just wants this person to receive what he has, right?
But why?
Well, and I think that's where it's tricky, is because it comes down to meaning. I think many of us, especially as men, we derive meaning out of that we have something valuable to share.
Yeah, but I mean, how you see
what I'm
saying is for you, and you just say, this has worked for me. You don't even know this kid.
Well, what I'm getting at is I think it is natural to resist receiving from somebody if you don't know what they get out of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think under older systems where, for instance, parents to kids, when you as a kid know that this parent needs you, that their survival rests on your learning how to get the crops in or learning this trade or whatever.
Well, our survival. Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole unit, you're a necessary part of this unit. Right. So you know what the motivation is, as opposed to somebody just dispensing information.
Right.
Well, what's in it for you? And if all that's in it for you is a little attaboy, I shaped this guy up.
I don't know. I just felt when I went to college, there was this idea, this universe of ideas that this guy understood, and he was like feeding it to me. He didn't, I never thought what was in it for him. What was in it for him was just the wonderfulness of being able to explain this stuff and give it to me. I think about all the best professors. I only knew one that really cared about me, but it wasn't. He took me to church, a kind of a church that I had never been to. But it had nothing to do with what he was teaching.
Well, maybe what you're getting at is maybe the best teachers somehow are able to transform the learning experience into, like, we're in this together, right? Like, this is so important and beautiful to me that you're learning it.
Well, I think the difficulty with that is there is a generational gap between this generation does not look for a well or experience of information. It is very much more practical.
What do they look for?
I think it's practical.
Well, it's just like the way people talk about college. College. I have to say, I would ask somebody my age and say, when you went to college, did your parents, did you think, what job are you going to get when you get out of college?
Oh,
What do
right.
you, I mean, I was just going
Yeah, I
to
think more people are
college,
thinking
man.
that now. What
Right.
job am I going to get?
I
How
mean,
am I
it's
gonna
more
get-
and now they're always
pragmatic.
talking about what are you going to study?
Yeah.
What are you going to get? What kind of job? I never thought about a job until I was kind of into college, and it was actually not related to what I was learning. I thought, well, now I'm going to be out of this in 2 years,
Yeah.
so this is what I'm going to do. But it didn't have anything to do with what I was learning in college.
Well, and that
College-
blurring of education as a good in and of itself, and as a luxury, which is the sort of the traditional, just a luxury of the, wealthy, to a sort of
Sound like a
pragmatic
communist, man.
tool. I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
It's great. A great luxury of the wealthy. I want everybody to be wealthy and have that luxury. But now it's transforming
If you
into a
disseminate
tool.
it to everybody.
Everybody's
Now
got
it's a bit of a tool to making money or
That's right.
some kind of status, as opposed to just a good in and of itself. Now, getting back to how does that fit in with teaching, preaching, and advice? Is teaching training? What's the difference between teaching and training? Because teaching
Training,
has a
yeah.
sense of the information, the knowledge is good in and of itself.
And the difference between training and teaching, too, because I was thinking about this when we were talking about advice. Most advice I've ever gotten was in a job, but really that was training. Right? And I was just a blank slate, and I knew exactly but teaching, there is a certain amount of, I don't know what I need,
Right.
and I hope you can tell me what I need.
And we don't know why you're learning it.
Right. I'm searching.
It is one of those. I mean, it's kind of like the Pelosi version. You've got to read the book to find out why you like it. There is something that should not be how our bills are, but there is a very much part of that in education.
When you submit to a teacher, you know better than I do, and you can tell me.
You have to just trust that this will justify itself. Why are we learning? The classic. Why are we learning? Shakespeare. Well,
why?
When you learn it, you'll understand why. You have to learn it, really.
But don't you
to
think?
Appreciate it?
Don't you think if you don't have some kind of attractiveness in the way you talk, the way you present, the person won't.
Right. At the end of the day,
I mean,
part of it, what you're saying is part of it is you're learning it to be like me.
Yeah.
The teacher,
I mean,
I want to be like them.
That's right. People would say, I was teaching English, and I'm saying, okay, it's like, I don't like his hitting his sister. No, I know you say, I don't like him hitting his sister, but I don't like his hitting his sister. Oh, I say, I don't like it. Yeah. But the question is, do you want to talk like you, or do you want to talk like me?
Right.
That's
what it comes
down
to.
I'm a teacher
but
here.
that's.
I mean, I didn't say it that way,
right? But I mean, at the end of the day, that's what. Yes, you were happy to go on being a doofus, or you can be like me.
And I've had courses. I've had courses. Guys knew a lot. I remember my lit teacher.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell his name. I don't want to defame. He was a great. But he would go on. It's like 3:30 in the afternoon about Beowulf or somebody, and man, 3:30 in the afternoon. And I remember I was right behind Diane Peterson. She had big old head of hair like this, and I just slipped right on down. And I mean, because he just went, hey. Well, and I thought,
but
he knew a lot.
Yeah,
but somehow he didn't.
But somehow he didn't attract me to think I want to be like this guy. Yeah. I want to know what he knows.
Well, but there is, I believe, there's a universal or a wide swath of people in this generation that relationship has been broken. Whereas we don't say anymore, I want to be like you. We say, screw you, give me what I need.
Yeah, I've been there.
I don't want to be like you, dude. You
just happen to have this thing.
Yeah, you have something. This education. If you don't, I'm out of here.
Right. It's this like compartment tools.
Yeah. And part of that I understand. Of course, I'm in the generation, somewhat. I'm not in that old wave, but part of it I lament the fact that we don't have a cultivated culture.
Well, that's what it comes
of
down to,
education.
is you're taking somebody's culture, their language. Education is everything. It's their language. It's how they talk. It's how they dress. It's how they everything.
But don't you think you're drinking at other fountains, which we didn't have? See,
Right.
when I was a kid, I had books.
Right.
I had books. They're right in here. Had books. Had school.
Yeah.
I had a
A little bit of television.
Well, you had television, but television was obviously
Entertainment.
well, it was either entertainment or flat news, but mostly entertainment, and mostly entertainment. Obviously, it was not talking about the way things are, the way things how people should be. Now you have all kind of shows on TV. I guess I don't watch TV anymore, but I'm on internet. You have all kind of things where people
Sources,
like this,
resources.
Right.
you know, you're getting,
Here we are. Yeah.
you're sourcing ideas. You don't have to go to college.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we go to college. Why? Because there's smart people.
The
And I just show up and
decentralization.
I'm going, tell me what life is about.
Right.
You know?
It was centralized then. Now it's decentralized.
Yeah.
And I
that's it.
think in the ebb and flow of things, there's decentralizing, then re-centralizing and decentralizing. We got to wrap it up.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to get both of y'all involved in putting these ideas into practice, the Gumption Academy to Blathe, and doing what we can to pass on, impart what we can, and to learn together. I want to bring people in who I respect, who I want to hear from, like Dad, like you, like other people that I've brought on the show here.
And new people.
And hey, here's somebody I want to listen to.
Yeah.
I think has something value. If you want to join in and listening to them with me, you're welcome.
I like that.
Me too.
Cool.
Real quick, let's see if we had any comments. I'm sure we did. Yeah,
Maybe.
11.
Probably always one person.
No. Let's see. Well, never mind. Okay.
Anyway,
Signing
welcome
off.
back. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening to our blathering to Blathe.
All right.
What do you have that's worth living for?
Hello in there. Hey,